are talking about the 27 Club. This is a horror movie that is directed by Patrick Fogarty. Now, this 27 Club is a kind of term which is used for musicians which die on in the age of 27. So then there have actually been a few, Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, just to name a few basically. And this film basically explores, is there some type of supernatural, connection to them? Obviously started with, I think it's Robert Johnson. And basically it focuses on a kind of struggling musician, this kind of woman who is a bit of a party girl, shall we say, alternate party girl, and this kind of documentary filmmaker who is somewhat obsessed with her. And there happens to be this latest guy who's just made up for this movie, who died at the age of 27, and we see basically from the prologue that there is indeed some type of deal with the devil kind of going on. And then the attention turns to this young woman who also dreams of becoming some type of music star, and she's kind of followed around by this love interest, this guy who's doing this documentary, who kind of get involved in this essentially a supernatural demonic pact with the devil. So what happens? You have to watch the movie to find out. That's as far as we're going. So let's talk about what works and what doesn't work with the 27 Club. So first of all, in a very, very interesting subject matter. There have actually been a few films based on the 27 Club, not kind of demonic possession so much, but it's a fairly well-known term, and I'm sad to say I'm sure there will be future members in its upcoming future at some point. Dare I say? But it's a fascinating kind of idea to have this kind of supernatural connection, which is kind of between them, which is realistically, it's obviously just a coincidence, to be honest. But yeah, it's obviously, for the sake of this film, it suggests that these guys are somehow making a deal with the devil, living fast, dying young, and ultimately paying the cost with their lives. So yeah, pretty good stuff in regards to an idea. I've got to say also, to add to that, there is some really kind of pretty good gore shots here. I was surprised at some of the level of the prosthetic score in this movie, because it's pretty violent, and we see some quite gratuitous deaths in this movie. So there's some really good effects works done here in practical makeup, and we do see kind of this demonic creature. It looks a little bit rubbery, if I'm honest, but it's a lower budget kind of B movie, so I can forgive that to a certain degree. But where this film falls down is just in the story itself, because to me the story doesn't really make a lot of sense. The narrative is kind of really choppy. It doesn't really know what it's doing. I mean, it just kind of doesn't make any sense if you kind of think about it. I mean, on a technical standpoint, I feel this movie is quite kind of well shot, and certainly has a polished feel to it. Like I've said, I think the effects work here is good. And things like the camera work, the sound design, the set design, production, actually is all pretty good. But the story is just all over the place. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, I'm going to give you one example, but I don't want to kind of go more than that to sort of go into spoilers. But we're meant to believe that people make this kind of deal with this devil, but the movie sort of suggests that when they make this deal, they're somehow possessed by a demon. So therefore, is the demon actually then possessing the body, or is it actually them? Because it kind of suggests it's both. And just kind of flits from one to the other depending on the kind of scene. There's no real kind of clear plot really in regards to where it's going, and that isn't the only example. There's a few things here that just doesn't make sense. It just seems to be that they've made decisions based on whether the plot needs to go for that kind of period of time. Secondly, our male lead here, who is this documentary filmmaker, I've got to say is a bit of a kind of unlikable character in the fact that he's just so dorky. I really didn't believe that he was kind of really had anything to do with this woman who's just kind of like this kind of rock chick basically, who just seems to be quite selfish to be honest. And this guy seems so kind of naive and wet behind the ears. It doesn't seem there's not a natural pairing in this light. He's played to be quite dumb, if I'm got to say. The acting too from some of the kind of, to be fair, kind of like the supporting actors is a little bit ropey. We have this college professor played by this older gentleman, and you know, I've got to say, I don't think much of his acting ability. Let's actually have a reasonable pivotal part of the film, but I've got to say his scenes were quite grueling to sit through, if I'm honest. But I've got to say the acting overall I didn't think was too bad. I just thought our male lead was very poorly written and poorly cast, if you ask me. So overall I feel this movie has some good ideas in regards to a really interesting subject matter. Visually it's pretty interesting with some good effects working, some kind of interesting kind of prosthetics. There are some kind of technical aspects which I feel are abundant on here and pretty good. But the story just hasn't been kind of thought through. And again, I say this in so many reviews, it seems to me that people either just don't care and just think, oh, you know, it's just a B movie, people aren't going to care about this kind of stuff, or it's a case of where it makes sense to the filmmaker because they're intimately kind of like behind the film and kind of, you know, they know what they're trying to say, but when you're watching it completely with fresh eyes, you're thinking, this to me just is all over the place. And I stick with quite a lot of lower budget indie films, unfortunately, and this is because you don't really have the like the test screenings so much like you do with kind of like more mainstream films. So therefore, I mean, this is what a producer's job should be ultimately, and I feel lower budget films suffer from this quite a lot. So it's kind of a little bit of a struggle story-wise. The narrative isn't great. But I'll give it a 4 out of 10. I do think it does have some visual style and at least a good idea here. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.